Dominican Republic, different social and popular organizations in the 14 provinces of the Cibao region go on strike to demand action against the high cost of living. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the U.S. of destroying globalization, which the United Nations hails as the greatest good of the world. And in Sudan, thousands of people flee to Chad, Egypt and South Sudan as clashes between the army and the rapid support forces continue. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In the Dominican Republic, workers and social organizations across El Cibao region began a 48-hour general strike aimed at drawing the government's attention to demands such as higher minimum wage and improved living conditions. Protesters denounced the high cost of the basic food basket and the rising inflation. They also called to close schools, stores, markets, and asked the citizens not to go to their jobs as a way to pressure the government to achieve a salary increase of up to 70%. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Defense activated a response plan and increased security across the region ahead of the mobilization, which included the militarization of the provinces of El Cibao. Citizens in the Caribbean nations say they will continue to protest so that the government takes action in favor of the poorest.
The government understands that it must take measures in favor of the most unprivileged, who are the poorest. Then yes, of course we support everything that comes, all the strikes that come.
Juan Compras, coordinator of the Cibao Coalition, stated that the call for the strike has been complied with in the province of Espaillat.
More than 98% of the general strike has been observed in the province of Espaillat. You are a witness of it because you have traveled and you have seen that everything is halted.
In Honduras, the Council of Ministers will receive the Tax Justice Bill, an initiative backed by the President Xiomara Castro, which seeks to eliminate the abuses of tax exemptions. The proposed legislation, once presented to the cabinet of this Central American nation, will be sent to the National Congress for its subsequent approval. According to government authorities, the project aims to stop the abuses of exonerations and to make the tax system more equitable by charging more taxes to those who receive more. The Honduran president stated that her government will make the necessary transformations to achieve the establishment of a rule of law and eliminate the destruction after 12 years of neoliberal administrations. On Monday, indigenous delegations began arriving in Brasilia to participate in the 2023 edition of the Free Land Camp, to be held from April 24th to the 28th. More than 6,000 indigenous peoples are expected in the federal capital for this week's activities. The Free Land Camp is the largest indigenous mobilization in Brazil and demands the demarcation of their lands, an end to violence, and a climate emergency decree. On Monday, participants have scheduled a march to demand the withdrawal of anti-indigenous proposals in Congress such as Bill 191, which allows mining on indigenous lands. The bill backed by the government of Jair Bolsonaro has been paralyzed since March 2022, while President Luis Inácio da Silva called on Congress to withdraw this legislative plan.
Today, we are with expectation, with the hope that we will protect our territory, our woods, that they will offer more resources for projects to be more sustainable. That is what we expect. I know that the previous government was very bad for us. He set the indigenous peoples against each other. This was very negative for us. Now, with Lula, we expect him to offer more resources for us, for our projects.
After 6 years of evading justice, former Peruvian President Alejandro Toledo could participate on Monday in a new hearing of the process prior to the corruption trial against him after having been extradited from the United States. The prosecutor, Jose Perez, informed that the indictment control phase will continue prior to the process against the former president. Perez assured that the accusation is solidly based on the testimonies and documents that prove that during his government, Toledo took about $35 million in bribes from Brazilian company Odebrecht to win a public works contract to build a highway connecting Peru and Brazil. In 2017, Toledo was accused of money laundering and remained evading justice in the United States until he was extradited to Peru this Saturday, April 22nd. On Sunday, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Haiti reported that from April 14th to the 19th, an altercation between rival gangs left 70 people killed and injured 40. The sinister took place in the high-risk areas of Cité Soleil in the capital Port-au-Prince. According to the report, there were 18 women and 2 minors among the fatalities, while other 12 women were injured. The UN agency said the humanitarian and security situation in many areas of the Cité Soleil commune, which has several 100,000 inhabitants, has reached an alarming level, and that women and children are particularly exposed to gang brutality. The fighting is also depriving the population of their freedom of movement and access to essential goods and services, and it has caused the closure of many schools and health centers in the area. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the United States of devoting itself to destroying globalization, which is praised within the United Nations as the supreme good of the world. Speaking at a meeting of the United Nations Security Council, the Russian Foreign Minister pointed to the fact that Washington, in a desperate attempt to assert its dominance, has devoted itself to destroying globalization with Western financial and economic aggression that destroys the benefits of globalization. Lavrov further denounced that Washington and the rest of the Western subordinates invoke their rules to justify illegitimate measures against those who formulate their policies in accordance with international law and refuse to follow the interests of the North American country. In this regard, he called on the West to behave decently and respect the other members of the world community.
As happened during the Cold War, we are on the brink of an abyss. The situation is worsening due to the loss of confidence in multilateralism, while the financial actions of the West are destroying the assets of globalization at a time when the United States and its allies are renouncing diplomacy and demanding to settle their relations on the battlefield. All this within the framework of the United Nations, which was created to prevent and stop the world from falling back into the scourge of war. Those responsible must show political responsibility so that the culture of dialogue can be reborn.
9 European countries held the second edition of the North Sea Summit aimed at scaling up wind power generation and push for renewable energy sources. Hosted by Belgium in the coastal town of Ostend, the meeting gathered European Union leaders from France, Germany, Ireland, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, along with European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen. Norway and the United Kingdom also participated, with the latter represented by UK Energy Security Secretary Grant Shapps. In a joint statement published ahead of the meeting, the leaders of the 9 nations emphasized the need to build and secure more offshore wind farms and their interconnectors to reach their climate goals. According to the statement, the summit's collective goal is to boost offshore wind power generation to 120 gigawatts by 2030 and at least 300 gigawatts by 2050. In Germany, a group of activists from the climate change movement blocked several roads in the capital. The people went out onto the streets of Berlin with banners as part of an action of protest that had already been announced. For the report, the police reported that from Monday morning, the activists began to block transport circulation in more than 30 points of the city in rejection of the government's climate policy. The largest number of activists gathered in the Charlottenburg-Wilmersdorf district. Authorities assure that these kind of actions continue and have hindered traffic circulation in several roads. On Monday, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio da Silva traveled to the city Brazil-Portugal Business Forum. Lula and his delegation attended the business forum held in the municipality of Matosinhos within Porto's metropolitan area. At the event, an agreement was signed between the Brazilian Export and Investment Promotion Agency and the Agency for Investment and Foreign Trade of Portugal. The agreement aims at strengthening bilateral economic cooperation and the promotion of small and medium-sized companies. The next stop in Lula's agenda was the Jedi Aeronautical Material Office, where he visited the facilities and the new Super Tucano aircraft produced by Brazilian aeronautical company Embraer and Portugal's aerospace company OCMA President Lula arrived in Portugal last Saturday and on Tuesday will be heading to Spain after attending a ceremony at the Portuguese Parliament. Combat sports continue to bring joy to Cuban athletes at the 5th edition of the ALBA Games. In this case, judo and taekwondo further increased the medals for the Caribbean island delegation. At the National Judo Center located in the United Nations Park in Caracas, Cuban athletes won medals in each division of the competition and closed in first place in the medal ranking of the event with 10 gold medals, 3 silver and 1 bronze. On the other hand, and after overcoming the initial tensions of the first matches, Cuban taekwondo athletes won 2 gold medals, 1 silver and 1 bronze medal. And this Monday in women's table tennis, Cuba, Russia and Venezuela stood out with excellent performances. At the Elizabeth Popper Sports Hall is the stage of this competition, and it witnessed great matches such as that of the Cuban duo Daniela Fonseca and Lisnainet Rodriguez, who defeated their rivals, Venezuelan Roxy Gonzalez, who after finishing a very close set managed to win against the Nicaraguan Cecilia Ibarra. On the other hand, the Russians did not lag behind and showed all their potential, specifically Ilyana Noskova. And after several days of competitions now at the 5th ALBA Games, Venezuela leads the medal standings. The hosts with their teams A and B, the most numerous competing in the 33 disciplines program, have already won 66 gold, 72 silver and 48 bronze medals for a total of 186. Cuba is next with 265 athletes in 24 disciplines, with an initial haul of 23 gold, 10 silver and 10 bronze. Nicaragua is currently third with 3 golds, 12 silvers and 29 bronze, followed by Bolivia with 3 gold and 1 silver and 3 bronzes. In addition, athletes from Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia and Russia take part in the regional event as guest countries. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Thousands of people are fleeing Sudan to Chad, Egypt and South Sudan due to the violence unleashed on April 15th in clashes between the army and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces. Today, the conflict has left more than 420 dead and 3,700 wounded, according to the United Nations. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs for Sudan stated that displacements of civilians have been registered from different Sudanese states, and cross-border movement from Sudan to Chad, Egypt and South Sudan have been observed. The UN representative in Chad, Laura Locastro, stated that between 10,000 and 20,000 Sudanese refugees have arrived in Chad. They pointed out that the African country continues to suffer from severe shortages of food, water, medicine and fuel, and limited access to communications and electricity due to the conflict.
The war fell on us all without warning. It was very sad for everyone, not just the foreigner, most for the Sudanese people. The situation in Khartoum is very sad. There is nobody there. We lost all of our investment. It is destroyed. I left with this t-shirt and these pajamas, all that I have with me after 17 years.
Foreign governments evacuated diplomat staff and others from Sudan as fighting between the Rapid Support Forces and the army continued for a 9th day with no sign of a truce. Many governments had carried out their evacuation operations to rescue foreign citizens and embassy staff by road, air and sea. In this sense, Saudi Arabia led the first reported successful evacuation with naval operations, picking up more than 150 people, including foreign diplomats and officials. Meanwhile, the United States military sent 3 Chinook helicopters to evacuate U.S. embassy staff from Khartoum. Likewise, in a tweet, the United Kingdom Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the army evacuated UK embassy staff and their families in what he called a complex and rapid operation. China's foreign ministry confirmed on Monday they evacuated the first group of its citizens from Sudan amid heavy fighting in the African nation.
Sudden change of situation in Sudan, the CPC Central Committee has been very concerned about the safety of Chinese citizens in Sudan. The Foreign Ministry immediately launched the emergency mechanism for consular protection and has worked closely with local governments of various departments, diplomatic missions in Sudan, and neighboring countries to safeguard the safety of Chinese compatriots in Sudan and formulate evacuation and transfer plans. The Foreign Ministry has sent a working group to carry out work. The first group of Chinese citizens has been safely evacuated to Sudan's neighboring countries.
On Monday in Kenya, more than 50 bodies have been exhumed from mass graves on land owned by a pastor in Kenya as part of an investigation into a starvation cult. On Friday in Malindi, the local police raided the Good News International Church, led by Pastor Paul Mackenzie, after receiving a tip from the public of an alleged starvation cult. They found 15 people emaciated, 4 of whom later died. According to local authorities, the alleged cult members told police they would meet Jesus if they starved to death. The investigation linked to the mass graves, and since forensic teams began exhuming the shallow graves on Friday, the death toll has been 50 bodies and could continue to rise. The Kenyan Red Cross has reported 112 people missing to a tracing service it runs. On Monday, Burkina Faso authorities reported the death of at least 60 people who were allegedly killed by people wearing uniforms of the armed forces of the country. On Friday, an attack took place in the village of Karma in the department of Barga in the north of the country, in which the attackers also allegedly stole several goods. The wounded were evacuated and are being treated by the health services in the area, with no information so far on how many people have been affected or their state of severity. The incident occurred one day after the transitional president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, signed a decree of general mobilization and a year-long alert to fight against extremist insecurity. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced that peace talks would begin on Tuesday with the Oromo Liberation Army, a rebel group active in the country's largest and most populous region of Oromia, which surrounds the capital Addis Ababa. In a statement, the premier added peace negotiations with OLA will begin in Tanzania, highlighting the government and people are in dire need of these negotiations and called on every party to play their part. Meanwhile, the OLA confirmed Prime Minister Ahmed's statements, attesting the government accepted their conditions for peace, which included the participation of an independent third-party mediator and a commitment to maintain transparency throughout the process. However, neither the government nor the OLA specified who the mediator would be, in which city the talks would be held, and in what format. We have come to the end of this news brief, and you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.